Everybody thinks the hardest part about reselling is finding a supplier, finding, profitable items to sell that are going to make the money. And in the beginning, these things are important. You need proof that this works. And so when you're first coming into this business, the only thing you're thinking about is, how am I going to be able to make money? How am I going to make money straight away? And those things are the supplier that you buy from and the items that you buy. That'll determine how you first make money. But once you've been doing this a while, once you realize that it works and you have the supplier, you know what items to buy, you have all of those things on lock, you'll quickly realize that your biggest bottleneck isn't supply, it isn't the items to buy, but instead it's consistency. See, if you want to do this long term, your biggest bottleneck will be consistency. And what I mean by consistency is waking up every single day and having to upload items, doing the exact same thing every single day for an extended period of time, because that is how you actually make money long term. Initially, it's by selling one or two items that you buy from a supplier. But over a period of time, what you need to understand is that you have to process hundreds and hundreds of items every single month, which means you're processing a lot of items every day. If you want to, scale past 1K profit a month, 2K profit, you want to push and start doing 10K revenue, more than that, what you'll realize is that the hardest part of it all is doing this every day. And what I mean by doing this every day, the consistency, it's, depending on how many items you have to upload a day, you will have to, well, at least for me, you have to wash 30 items, you have to dry them, you have to iron them, you have to photograph them, and you have to upload them to these platforms. And then, once you've done your 30 for that day, you then have to go and do the exact same thing tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, almost indefinitely, until you can get to a point where you can outsource or you can hire. Because the thing with all these platforms is you do need to be uploading consistently. You can maybe take 1 day off, 2 days off in a row, but if you take a week off, you will see a noticeable decrease in your sales and therefore the amount of money you're making. And what that kind of does is, sure, we have a business, you run a reselling business, but at the end of the day, you are an employee to that business, right? It does not make money without you. But obviously, if you're just starting out, you're a beginner, you can outsource, you can't hire, you need proof of concept first. And I gave myself that proof of concept for over a year. For a year straight, I was up in this warehouse, taking photographs, doing the exact same thing every day. And I was doing this 7 days a week. I didn't really have a social life. I maybe took 1 or 2 days off of uploads last year, right? Now, doing that every day for a year did take some level of discipline, some level of focus, because every day wasn't easy. I wasn't excited to go up and take photos every day. In fact, it was often extremely boring, and because it's so repetitive, because you're doing the exact same thing in the same order with the same routine, it gets boring, it gets repetitive. And so, like I said, that this part of the business will become your biggest bottleneck as you start to scale, as you start to grow. And so how do you get past that? How do you make it easier to do the same thing every day? Well, one, it becomes easier when you're making a lot of money from it. You're seeing the results of your work. That can help, that can motivate you to keep going and doing the same thing every day. But you will also have periods of times where you aren't making a lot of money, and that's when the doubts start creeping in. You're up here taking your photographs every single day for months at a time, and you're not seeing the results of that. You don't feel like it's worth it. And so those are the moments that it's the hardest, where the majority of people might give up or slip on their listings. And the thing about consistency in reselling and consistent uploads is that it's almost self-fulfilling, because what will happen is, when you're uploading consistently every day, what will happen is, because of the consistency, because you're uploading every single day, you will start making more sales. And as a result, you'll start making more money. And because you're making more sales, because you're making more money, you'll have more motivation to go and do your uploads the next day. And then when the opposite happens, when you're maybe uploading every day, but you're not getting the results, you're not seeing the money coming in, you might slip on your listings. And because you slip on your listings, you're going to see a decrease in sales and a decrease in money, and therefore you're going to be even less motivated to go and do your listings the next day. And so when it does get hard, when it is difficult, this is when your routine and the systems behind what you do, what I'm doing right now, the photographing or the washing or how you upload, these things have to be set up in a way in which it makes you easy to do it. There has to be a very low level of resistance to go and do it. Now, right now, for example, I'm taking these photographs, and I've taken photographs in multiple places. I used to hang stuff on a wall in my bedroom. I used to hang stuff on a wall in my university bedroom. I've taken stuff on the floor in a living room. I used to take photographs on the floor, on my knees in this warehouse. And now I have this board that you see here with all these lights. And it's at this moment in time with this setup that it's never been easier for me to take photographs. And that's because it's so easy to do it. I can switch my lights on, I can take something off the rail, I can throw it down, and I take my photographs. It's not awkward, it doesn't take much effort. I come up to the warehouse in the morning, I have my items, and I take my photographs as quickly as possible. So therefore the resistance is low, and it makes it slightly easier to do that. Now, on top of that, how else do I lower the resistance to do photographs? Well, I usually have my headphones on, or I'll have some music on the speaker. So I'll listen to a podcast, I'll listen to music, which is enjoyable, therefore making the photographs easier, something that you almost look forward to at that point. And then to add something on top of that, I'll have a can of Monster, I'll have caffeine, a coffee, something like that, which again makes it more enjoyable. So with those three things, I've completely lowered the resistance to taking photographs, therefore making it so much easier to be able to do it every single day for months at a time, for a year at a time. If you'd removed the photograph station, if you remove the music, if you remove the caffeine, what are the chances that I might have slipped up more last year? Definitely higher. There's definitely an increase there. And this same principle literally applies to every other part of the business. You need to create a routine, a system that is as simple as possible for you to do it. If you have to pull your lights out of the cupboard every time you want to photograph, if you have to set up your station every single time you want to photograph, what happens on those days where you're a little bit tired, where the motivation's a little bit lower than normal, sales haven't been that good, and you can't be bothered, and there's this much higher level of resistance to start the job in the first place? It just increases your chances of not doing it, and therefore getting into this self-fulfilling cycle of didn't do your listings, therefore sales drop, therefore motivation drops. So in the beginning, you'll come into this business and you'll think that the only thing that matters is suppliers and finding profitable items, but I could put you in my position with the supplier, with the profitable items, and you still wouldn't be able to make money. You'd still fail because you haven't learned how to do this consistently over an extended period of time. Now, as you can kind of tell, because I've probably said the word consistently about 50 times at this point, that is all that matters. And not just in reselling, literally anything. You will succeed if you're consistent. If you're not consistent, it doesn't matter how good you are, who you know, the items that you buy, you're not going to make it work. And so the way you are consistent is at the end of the day, it is a muscle. You're disciplined, being disciplined, right? So it's by doing it again and again, repeating it, but it's also by making the tasks easier, lowering the level of resistance to do the things that you don't necessarily always want to do. And then eventually you get to a position where I am, whereas I've learned the routine, I've built the systems behind it that makes it easy, and now I can bring somebody else in to do it for me. I can finally get off the train, the never-ending cycle of uploading 30 items and then having to do it the next day and having to do it the next day. And basically being a slave to your business. You know, you don't make money unless you're working on the business. Therefore, you don't really have a business, you're just an employee of your business. But of course, it takes time to get to that position. You do have to go through the work yourself. But overall, the point that I'm trying to make is that right now you think you need the supplier, you think you need the profitable items, but if you actually had the consistency already unlocked, if you already had the discipline unlocked, every day you'd be trying to find suppliers. You'd be trying to test which items are profitable. You would be doing continuous research if you had that discipline, if you had that consistency. And so if you want to start reselling, yes, you need suppliers. Yes, you need profitable items at the end of the day. But long term, if you want to build an actual business, if you want to make serious money, not just a couple £100, 1,000 a month, that's not proper. If you want to build it into something serious that's doing you more than 5,000 a month, well then it's about building the routine that makes it as easy as possible. Because once you scale, nothing changes. The only thing that changes is the amount of time it takes to do each bit. You know, if I was only doing 10 photos, it wouldn't take me as long as doing 30. That's obvious, right? That's logical. And so the same principle applies when you're scaling. It's that the only thing that changes, it doesn't get harder to find more stock. It doesn't get harder to get better items. In fact, it gets easier because when you buy more, you're getting things cheaper, okay? But what gets harder is staying consistent. Imagine me going from 30 things a day to 60 things a day. That is double the output, double the focus, okay? And therefore almost double the chances of me skipping a day or not doing 60 that day because it's so much harder to be consistent, right? And that is fundamentally the point that I'm making, is that it all comes back to consistency. Consistency in doing the work, consistency in your uploads, but also consistency in trying to make it work when you're not seeing results. Right now you're probably watching this and you've not bought from a supplier before, you don't know what items are profitable. Well, be consistent in doing research, trying to find the suppliers, testing different suppliers. Because at the end of the day, you might order from a supplier once, you might make a couple £100, but what is the point in that if you're not going to be able to do it consistently?